Hello, everyone.
Hi guys, thanks for joining. We know it's a little later than usual, but thank you for popping on tonight. We are here on Facebook and also on my Instagram live, so you can join either threads. But I hope everybody's having a good start to the week. So tonight we are going to be talking about patience and the role that plays in our lives and the different areas of our lives. We think it's a really important topic that sometimes is missed or glossed over, and I thought maybe we could start out with just talking about what patience is, because at least, I used to think and kind of equate the word patience with being just synonymous with waiting. And the more, I've grown and thought about it, there's a lot more to it than just waiting.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think there's an element that we miss when we think we should just be idle in a time of patience, when actually patience can be a time of not yet, but we're going to do something in the meantime. Like we're going to work toward that goal in a way that we can at the moment, or we're going to pray about that thing while we're in that period of waiting. So I think, yes, it goes deeper than just waiting and sitting there. I also think it's attitude. When we're patient in our attitude and in our focus and our mindset, then we bring a peace to a situation versus trying to control things, trying to white knuckle our way through life. We're saying, I'm gonna, give this over to God. I'm gonna be okay with the situation as it is right now until something changes. It may not mean that we love the season that we're in, though, at the moment, I think.
And I think patience doesn't mean that you're not still acting through that. You're not still moving forward. You're not still trying to make progress in whatever area that is. Patience doesn't mean that you're just sitting, you're just waiting. I think you can still be patient, and your attitude can still be one of, you can still be in a mindset of gratitude. You can still be trying to enjoy life where you are, but you're still acting in a way that is in alignment with your goals. And I think, patience can be hard because we think, we live in a, you've heard the term microwave society, where we want everything to be done very quickly. And unfortunately, fortunately to some extent, like, you have to work for the things that you want. And that's what really separates the people that are successful in any area from the people that aren't, is that they've paid the price. The dues to success are due every day. It's not, success isn't owned, it's leased, it's rented. You have all these sayings, that you may or may not have heard. But it's true, that the people that are successful in any arena have paid the price of that success. And part of that price is patience and waiting and doing the things that they need to do to get to that level of success.
No, I think that's absolutely true. I was just thinking about, when we really want something, like we really want to achieve a goal, or we really want to accomplish something, or we really desire a change in our life or something, it takes that element of patience and of waiting and of striving and of doing those little baby things every day. But that process turns us into the person that we want to become for that situation to be even more fulfilling, for that change to come. Like, for example, even if your income, let's say, increased a huge amount, if you don't know how to manage money, if you haven't learned how to be wise with your resources, namely your income, at that point, and you're just giving everything away, or you're being unwise with it, maybe you're gambling it away or whatever, then it doesn't matter how much you make at that point, because you're not being wise and you haven't grown yourself in the area of learning how to manage your finances well. And so I think that's the same thing too, is, we may want to be here right now, and we're here, and that difference is the process is helping us to get to where we want to go. So I think that's something that we often miss, is the person that we could become, the the process that we go through in order to get to where we want to go. So I think that whole situation really gets me thinking about who do you want to become, or who do you need to become in order to get to where you want to go. And if you are confident that you are going to get there, and you have that faith that you will get there, then the patience can come more easily, because you know, I'm going to get there eventually. I'm going to reach where I want to be able to go if I do the little things every day, if I'm willing to submit myself to the process of becoming the person I know I need to be. So that's just something I was thinking when you were talking about some of that. And it looks like we may be having technical difficulties here, so bear with us for just a moment. You need to press on that little plus at the, yeah, okay, or that. Yeah, there you go. All right, now we can get on Instagram now.
So don't you think, at least in my experience, in my life, I've seen, when you're trying to work towards a goal, and you keep telling yourself mentally to be patient, mm-hmm. And that's usually in a time of where you haven't gotten whatever it is as quickly as possible, or you've hit a roadblock. There's a lot of frustration almost mm-hmm. that's tied to even that word of being patient, because you're not bringing that up unless you kind of hit a roadblock.
Okay.
How do you kind of disengage from that frustration and remind yourself, either, yes, I'm still making progress, I'm still moving towards where I need to be going. How do you kind of remove that frustration? Because in some senses, again, in my experience, at least, patience is almost almost has this negative connotation to it, because it's when you've hit a roadblock or an obstacle.
Right, or you feel stuck.
Yeah.
I certainly don't have all the answers to this, but something that's really helped me, a saying that's really helped me, has been when nothing is happening, when nothing looks like it's happening on the surface, everything is happening. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen this image, but there's this meme where basically there's this huge, like a carrot is in the ground, right? And there's like the carrot part, but then there's like the top, and there's this carrot that has like a huge top, but then like a little baby actual carrot on the underneath the surface. And then there's this little baby top, but then this huge carrot underneath the surface. And so I think sometimes we do these little things every day and we feel like, am I even making progress? Am I even making progress? But when there's actually this huge carrot underneath the surface that we don't even see. And so I think when you look at things like that and you think about, okay, what is this leading me up to? Then it's helpful. Another thing that I think about too, when I feel stuck or when I feel frustrated about where I am, is I try to think about, okay, what's like one little goal that's something I can control, that I can reach. Like, for example, with my business, that's just hypothetical, but like with my business, I know I can control how many people I ask, what kind of activity that I'm in myself every day. I may not can control like my yeses or my nos or any kind of the outcome, but I can control how much activity I'm in. So if I accomplish a certain amount of activity, I can say, oh, I can congratulate myself and I can reward myself. Like if I do some, we have a certain sheet that kind of tracks our work every day. If I do that work, for me, it's rewarding to color in my little box that says I did it. If you do it a week in a row, maybe you go and treat yourself to some Starbucks or bubble tea or something like that. And so I think when you think about little milestones that you can reach, that makes it so much easier than, then you're focused on what you can control instead of just the things that you can't. And then it feels like, okay, I'm making progress and I can track this.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to see, to try to bring those things that back into your realm of control. And then also I think maybe that's where like something like journaling can be really important, because we get so in the day-to-day and we don't think we're making progress. And if you looked back and were really diligent about journaling of some kind, then you could go back 3 months and see, oh, really, I have seen a lot of growth in this area.
Right.
And that can be motivating to see, if I've grown in 3 months, then, I can grow so much more in another 3 months or 6 months.
Exactly.
And then even compound that. I was just listening to a podcast on somebody who had kept journals since they were like a high schooler, and they recently went back and looked through all of those and wrote a book based on some of those experiences. But think about that lifetime of having seen where I was, what I learned during this period. And this is a little off track, but in the positives and negatives, because seeing where, how did I navigate the positives and keep gaining momentum and not get complacent during when things are going good? And then when things weren't going as good, how did I get myself out of those lulls and back into a good place? So I think journaling along with, daily tracking is something that can be really, really vital to really feel like when you hit that roadblock and you need patience, bring it back into the realm of what can I do today to keep moving forward.
And I love that. That's another thing that I do. I love that you brought that up, because I'll like go back and I'll look at, and I think you could even like with your analogy, like, okay, go back 3 months. Okay, go back 6 months. Okay, now a year. And sometimes I get really frustrated about, okay, I'm only here and I want to be way over there. And then I think about, okay, where was I a year ago? And it's like, oh wow, like I did actually make some progress. Or oh wow, I see how it's different there. I see, like, even in my business, again, for example, I can see actual numbers there. So I can see, okay, numbers here, numbers there. Okay, that's a difference. And so even though it doesn't feel like I'm making maybe the progress that I want yet, that it doesn't mean that I'm not making progress at all. And I think too, kind of going back to what you're saying about the journals, is that I think there's also times that we can look back on in our lives, even if we didn't journal about it or have like a careful record of it, where we can say like, wow, God really brought me through that situation. Or what did I do in that scenario to get through that thing? And then it kind of can help guide you in your current endeavors. Because like I often think about when I was building my studio, or sometimes in high school when I was practicing a lot, like on Friday nights or just in general, I would practice around at least 2 to 3 hours a day, and usually was at night, like 10 to 12, and then maybe sometime earlier in the day. And I remember Mom and I would stay up late talking. I think Mom would usually be in bed, and I would kneel at her bedside and I would talk to her about how I felt like I still had so much more to do and so much more to go. And it doesn't mean that I've arrived now or anything, but I just think about those times and how that prepared me for later. And one thing she would always say to me is, but you did something today, and you can keep going. Like, tomorrow is a new day, and as long as the Lord, allows us to live to that time, tomorrow you can make more progress, even though you may not have made the progress you wanted today. Yeah. And so I think that's something too, to just remind yourself and look at the process and look at what helped you before to get to where you wanted to go in other endeavors as well, and let that teach you.
Yeah, I think that's great. So maybe we can shift a little bit to some more specific examples. One of the areas we were talking about is how patience applies to improving our physical health. I think, we're getting close to the end of the year. Obviously we all know that, at the beginning of the year, most people make New Year's resolutions and those can quickly fall apart. Yeah. How do you think patience applies, or how have you seen it apply in some of your physical goals that you've experienced recently?
Yeah. So something that I did earlier this year was I started going to a Bar Method gym and being a part of that. And my first class, I stunk really badly. And it was interesting because I have done it most weeks. I've done it twice a week, sometimes 3 or 1. It just depends. But my goal is like 2 to 3 times every week to do a class. And they're usually about 45 minutes to an hour. And there's certain things, just like anything else, where, you may see little progress, and then like the next class you're like, oh, but I did so well like Monday on that, but now it's Wednesday and I did terribly, and you're like, man, But recently toward the beginning of my journey, like I think May, June, I had taken a lot of classes with a specific instructor, and I hadn't seen her in several months, or taken a class, I should say, with her in several months. And so I did take a class with her the other day, and I didn't feel like I did like amazing, but I was walking away, at the end of the class, and I was like, thank you so much. And she was like, you're getting so much stronger. And I was like, you don't see that, but like she could see the progress. And so I was like, I hoped that you could see some progress, but for me, I'm still thinking, oh, but I want to be here, but I want to be there, But like sometimes you need that reminder. And so even when we feel like we're not making the progress, it's sometimes have to battle with health and fitness and things like that. It's just showing up and doing the thing. Like even if you don't feel like it's making a difference, just do the thing. Just do it again. Because I think what happens, we do these certain what do you call it? Like tucks or flexing of our muscles, and especially like with abs and different things like that. And they say this thing like layer it on top of each other, like layer one after the other, like make the next one more intense and more intense and more intense. And I feel like that's how our habits, especially with like physical health, go. Like we need to layer them on top of each other, more intense, more intense, more intense, more intense. And sometimes it's only, okay, I go an extra 100 yards today or whatever. I take one more step. I do one more minute on the treadmill. I do one more set of thigh work in my case for bar method. But I think that's something that I've noticed is you just showing up and doing the thing again, even if it feels like you're not making the progress.
Yeah.
It's strengthening you over time.
Yeah.
And layering.
I think specifically on the topic of patience, that can be really important when you don't see the progress immediately. And, so many people get frustrated and quit, whether it's a workout routine or it's a eating methodology, because you don't see progress very quickly, depending on your body type, your age, your physical activity, your overall health, any other factors. I mean, it can be extremely frustrating, and especially when you're comparing yourself to your friends or celebrities or athletes, and you want to be at a certain point and you don't see that, and it can be not just frustrating, but it can be heartbreaking. It can tear you apart. But I think understanding that your body is an amazing gift, an amazing creation, and your body is able to heal itself. It is able to transform itself if you give it time, if you give it the energy it needs, if you give it the input it needs. And so having the patience with your own body to keep working on it on a daily basis, and understanding and almost viewing it as an experiment, almost viewing it as like I said, an experiment. Hey, what is this? If I do X, what's going to happen? If I do Y, what's going to happen? And tracking that and seeing, okay, well, this really worked for me, or this didn't work for me. And then, that's why one of the methods that people use is the before and after pictures, is because you see from a certain point, 3 months ago I look like this, now I look like this. But I think really having that attitude of just an experiment and not taking it too not too seriously, but not being so expectant of a certain result in a certain amount of time, and comparing yourself to others can allow you on a daily basis to be more patient with yourself.
Like if you're not at this number, you're like, it's, or if I'm not doing this many sit-ups.
Because our bodies are so different from each other. We have different body types, different heritage that impacts. You're not going to look like the next person at the gym that you were trying to look like necessarily. But that doesn't mean you can't
like them.
have you can't still reach the goals that you want to, and you can't look the way that you want to. You can't look like a healthy individual. It just may take more time and more effort.
Right.
And, like we've talked about before, we discount the work we don't see others do certain work. We just see them for 30 minutes a day and think, well, how can they look like that? I should be able to look like that. But we don't see that they do 2 hours of workout today.
Or we see the before and after picture and we go, oh my goodness, we don't know the backstory. We don't know the things that they've been sacrificing or whatever. I know that's one thing too, is like, there's the saying of like, if you want to be where XYZ person is, like if you want to be a millionaire, study millionaires. If you want to be really great athlete, study great athletes. I think the same thing is true for people who are in really good physical and health, physical shape, or are living a healthy lifestyle. Like study those people. So what are they doing? Ask them, hang around them, think like them, do the things that they do. And I think that's where the rubber meets the road, is we lose patience because we're not willing to do the things that they do for long enough.
Right, we want a shortcut.
Yeah.
We want a life hack.
Yes.
And there is none, and that's the boring. It's boring, and we want something exciting. It reminds me of the story of in the Bible of Naaman. He wanted an exciting story. He wanted some great thing to do, and he just had to wash in the Jordan 7 times. That wasn't cool enough. And we want something that's big, or a pill, or whatever, a certain workout routine, and the answer is always work harder.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost always work harder, have better routines, be smarter about how you're working, and that's just not exciting.
No.
And so, yeah, but there is an element that even in that hard work, if you even are doing exactly what you need to do, it's still going to take time, and we have to have patience and find a way to have some joy or fulfillment in that process.
Yes. And that, I think that's a key too, because patience is not a begrudging sort of attitude where you're just like, well, I'm just going to sit here and, it's an acceptance. It's a finding joy in the process, like you said. And again, the same thing can be true, like all these other strategies that we've talked about, looking back and finding little milestones and things like that. And again, sometimes it's just showing up. It's just doing the thing. It's just, okay, I did 5 push-ups 5 days in a row or 7 days in a row, and giving yourself a gold star or whatever it is that is rewarding for you, and allowing that to be enough, and instead of feeling like it needs to be this glamorous life and I need to have this magic pill and this quick fix, because that's not, first of all, it's not realistic. And second of all, even if you did somehow achieve that, that is not lasting. And when it comes to health and physical, healthy living, lifestyle, eating, physical appearance, or fitness, whatever, it's not we want something that's going to last. That's a lifestyle that's going to help us live this way continually. You don't want to just lose all this weight and then gain it right back. You don't want to you don't want to gain all this muscle and then lose it right away. You don't want to be able to run a marathon and then be a couch potato for the rest of your life. You want it to be a lifestyle, something that you're continually building upon and can be helpful for the rest of your life, so that you can really live the best of your life in that time frame and have quality of life, hopefully.
Yeah, so we could go on and on about
yes,
that.
We really can.
Another area that we were thinking about is your career or your business or your hustle, how patience can impact that. And I think that's another really important component that some of the things we've talked about apply to. But when you start something out, there's an excitement to it. There's a vibrancy to it. We've talked about this in our spiritual lives. There's a lot of people, in most cases, that are supporting you and excited for you.
Right.
And then it can quickly fizzle out, and your supporters can fade into the background. And you even find that you have no supporters, you actually have detractors. And so it can be very difficult to sustain what you need to do in order to make your career or your business a success.
Yeah. No, I think that's one of the things that I think can be so challenging, because I feel like these days a lot of like the side hustles and the things that we do that are building businesses, let's say, they're so closely tied to who we are. Like, we are our brand, or we are offering the service or whatever, and that can feel very personal. So if somebody is very against us building that business, or is very against the way that we paint or take pictures or whatever it is, then it can feel very, very personal, and it can feel very like sludging through this huge, I don't know, like thing of mud or sand, or I don't know, I'm like have this imagery of like caramel, like you're trying to get through it and it feels really hard. And so I think for me, what patience looks like in my various businesses has just been continually finding people that I can touch base with that are doing the same things that I'm doing. And maybe it's even talking with them about like, what are they doing to have patience? What are they doing that's bringing them joy every day, even though they're not at their goal yet? So connecting with people, I think, is huge. And I think also finding joy in the process. Like I said, what are you doing to find joy each day? What are you soaking in that you aren't going to get back? Like when I was building my violin studio, something that I thought about a lot was like, one day I'm going to have XYZ number. Like I think my goal eventually was 25 students. So I was like, one day I'm going to have this huge studio and, maybe even if I didn't say 25 students, but I'm going to have several students and this is what I envision it's going to look like. And this is what I'm so excited for. And yes, I was looking forward to that time, but I also was trying to soak up like, how can I help the people that are in front of me? How can I continue to get the word out about my studio? How can I use this time so that I'm ready for when I was really busy? And one thing I did is I put together this incredible like packet of things that like a whole folder and everything to prepare so that once I started students, I had those folders ready to go and I was able to give them to students and have a lot of that stuff thought through. So what can you do now to really help prepare you and help you have joy in that time, different than you would later because you're really busy or because you're focusing on other things and maybe you've arrived at some of those goals. So a lot of those things about enjoying the process and connecting with people, I think help us stay grounded in what we're doing instead of getting so caught up in the weeds. And I think the last thing I guess I would say just initially that comes to mind is really helping your mind stay in the right place, which is really hard, Yeah. And I think like listening to things that are really positive, that are going to lift you up, maybe even specific to your profession or your business, or small business podcasts. There's a lot of them out there, but listening to things like that really help you to keep your mind right and not allow anyone or anything to detract, like you said.
Yeah, I think a couple of things that you touched on there that I'd been thinking about were, one, shifting, if you hit that roadblock, then shifting to something else that is adjacent to what your goal is or is another part of it, and not, maybe you don't have the 25 students right now, you're working towards it, but what can I do to help my overall goal or another aspect of it, so right. I'm not so inside this one little thing that isn't going how I want it to go. Well, maybe if I step to the side a little bit, I can kind of come at this issue a different angle. So I'm being proactive, I'm not being reactive.
Right.
So how can I shift, like just either step aside and look at this a different way, or how can I, get a higher view of the situation and see if I'm missing something.
Right.
So you're not being, again, a victim, you're taking proactive action. And then another thing is, I think, like really asking yourself, am I doing the right thing? So maybe I'm hitting this roadblock because I'm not doing the right habits. I'm missing the mark somewhere.
Right.
So maybe there's something that I need to be doing or adding to this goal that I just haven't found yet or I don't know yet. And so again, taking that responsibility and accountability back and not relying on the circumstances or other people to move your project forward or your business forward, being accountable for doing the right thing. And sometimes, yes, it is like you said, going through that caramel. There are some things that you just have to go through that regardless. That is the right thing you need to do.
Right.
But sometimes you're missing something, and so stepping back from the problem and really recalibrating and seeing if there's something else that you can be doing, I think is something when you're feeling frustrated and you're feeling like you're not moving forward, we can do to really help us move forward.
Yeah, well, and also I think along those same lines is like, what kind of things in your business do you enjoy? What kind of things light you up? What kind of things like really get you excited and pumped and ready to show up? And how can you and then think, okay, how can I bring more of those things into my work time?
Right.
And less of those things that are like the caramel or whatever. And it doesn't mean that maybe you never do those things, but maybe it means that you figure out a way that you can outsource some of those things, or that you can do some of those things smarter so you don't have to spend as much time doing those things, And so I think when you bring more of those things that really are like light you up, really like get you like in your happiest, best state, and you can bring more of those things into your everyday of working your business or building your business or whatever, whether it's service-based or product-based, you're able to focus on those things, and then you want to come back to that more often. It reminds me of something that my grandfather always emphasized about practicing, which was, he said, one thing that he read or heard or whatever was that to always put the instrument down while you still love it. And when you if you do that, you're like, oh man, like I really want to pick it up again. And so then the next day when you go to pick it up again, or later when you go to pick it up again, you're excited and you're like, yeah, I'm so jazzed to like pick up my instrument again and play it again, because you still love it and you still want more of that in your everyday and in your life. So
yeah, and I think there's an element too of in being patient with yourself and, you know, self-care, and not being too hard on yourself. If you are hitting a roadblock, if you are missing the mark on something that you're trying to tackle, whether that's in your business or in your health, because you know, sometimes, you know, we hit a roadblock, and it takes a while to get around that, and we have to figure things out and give ourselves time, and not having too high of expectations on ourselves, and not expecting too much, or for us to be at a certain level at a certain amount of time. We, I think, have to sometimes recalibrate and really see, you know, why am I pursuing this? Why is it important to me? Do I have the right goals? And sometimes looking at it a different way, and like I said, stepping away from it for a moment, and maybe there's another way I can tackle it, or I can do something else to help me move me forward, but in a different way, I think is really important, that we are patient with ourselves, not just with the situation.
Yeah, I think we're where that impatience comes from, especially when we're not where we want to be, like goal wise, is from we're so hard on ourselves. We have these really sometimes impossibly high expectations of ourselves. You know, we want to have lost 60 pounds in 2 weeks, and that's just not reality, right? And so even though, again, we know in our minds like that's not real, we still want that result. And what's so cool is that when we can take a step back and we can have that patience with ourselves, and we can have grace with ourselves and learn to love ourselves more through that process, then it helps us come out on the other side when we have reached that goal and feel so much better about that whole process instead of just the goal. And I think sometimes that's how we think. We think, okay, I'm a loser because I'm here, but I'm only a winner here. And that's not real either. You're a winner both places. Like, you're worthy both places. The difference is that you can enjoy the process, and you can learn to love yourself more and more through that process. One doesn't equate a loser or winner. And I think we have these like black and whites in our mind about goal setting, instead of a goal as an opportunity to love yourself more and to get to a different place and grow yourself to a new place.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important that we're not just pursuing that goal, that, you know, whatever it is, whether it's a personal or health, there has to be the process has to be part of the reward. And if we're doing the right things every day, then we can go to bed happy, we can go to bed satisfied and fulfilled because we took those steps. And then, you know, if the goal comes, you know, if we make that, then great. It's almost just like a cherry on top. Because along the way, you know, we may decide to shift to something else, and that'll be all right, because along the way we've fulfilled those daily things that we needed to do, and we've been patient with ourselves, we've adjusted when we need to. But I think, you know, we sometimes don't understand the time. Some things that we're pursuing are hard, and they're going to take time, and you're gonna feel like you failed,
right? And
you have to just get back up and recalibrate, or keep doing that thing over and over until you get it. Just like with practicing, whether it's, you know, an instrument or whether it's an athletic event,
right?
You know, we can see this more easily in things that are physical, like sports or like an instrument, because we know that it takes muscle memory, it takes hand-eye coordination, and we can see that get better over time. But sometimes, you know, we don't see that as easily with ourselves and our mental capacity and our personal growth. And we have to be able to understand, like you hinted at earlier, is sometimes we're not ready for whatever that goal is, right? And we're building up to that. And I think sometimes it's harder for us to be easy on ourselves and those kind of things or we're trying to grow in our leadership, we're trying to grow in our self-discipline, where we're trying to grow in our mental toughness. And those things are harder to measure, and so we can be frustrated with ourselves and not patient with ourselves in those areas.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a whole other discussion of how do you track that and things like that. But again, it is as concrete as we can make this for ourselves, and as much joy we can find as we can find in the process, and in making small goals or making small milestones that we can celebrate in, I think are going to help us in those areas. And I could keep going about different things that, in fact, we've already talked about, like mentorship, etc.
So I think real quickly, I want to touch on relationships. I think patience in relationships is really important. I think whether it's your spouse, somebody in your family, or whether it's friends or coworkers, I think being, at least with me, I can be very quick to judge on first impressions and say, okay, that relationship isn't going to happen, or it's just not, I can't invest the time in it, it's not going to work, or they don't like me, or whatever, based on limited information. And I think we have to be willing to put in the work and be patient with another person in that relationship to let them grow, let us grow, and really see whether or not that relationship is going to be beneficial. And sometimes we're quick to take people off the radar and not be willing to invest the time it takes to really see if that relationship is going to grow and blossom into something.
Yeah, relationships can be so complicated and so layered, but I do think that the more patience we can have with ourselves and with each other, the better we can be at relationships. And the better we love ourselves, the better we can love other people. And where they are, like you said, they may not be where we are growth-wise. And I think there's certain relationships that require more patience than others. And there are some relationships that, maybe we have gone along and we've really tried to, have the patience and build the relationship. And sometimes there's very rare circumstances where we can't continue or whatever. But I think, the more you can try to step into the other person's shoes and give yourself time if you're feeling angry, or give yourself or give the other person time. I try to remember the 10-second rule as much as I can. I'm not perfect about that, but just even taking 10 seconds to just count down, or going in the other room and taking 10 seconds or whatever it is, and then coming back to the situation. We still want to be able to resolve things or be able to talk through things, but sometimes it does take that stepping away, maybe saying a quick prayer, and then coming back to have that patience to talk that thing through, or to work through that situation. And I think with new relationships, kind of like you were I think alluding to, that can be a really difficult one too, because you're still really feeling the other person out, they're really feeling you out, and so that's kind of a complicated thing, and that you do have to have a lot of patience with the other person. They've got to have a lot of patience with you, because your relationship with each other is going to look different. We always compare our relationships with somebody new with our old relationships, and so when we are with this new person, we can't expect them to be like the old friends that we have or whatever. And so and also, yes, when we first meet people, it's very easy to get like wrong ideas or impressions or whatever at first about them. And what's so funny is multiple times in my life, I feel like I've had situations where I initially meet a couple of people, maybe in the same context, and I think, okay, this set of people I'm jiving with, we're really going, like it's great, we're really, riffing off each other. And then this group of people, it's like maybe our relationship has been awkward and like not very good, and I'm like, I don't really get a good vibe here. And the weird thing has been that, like, I can think of at least 2 times this has happened where this group of people that was kind of awkward and like it was a weird start ended up being people I was much closer to, versus these people that I initially kind of jived with. And so you do have to have patience, and you kind of have to stick it out through that maybe awkward beginning to get to the center goodness,
Yeah, I think with if you're pursuing a relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship, there has to be a lot of grace, and there has to be giving that relationship room to grow. Like you think of a plant, you have to sometimes just walk away and let it do its thing, and come back every once in a while and check in with it, water it if you need to, do whatever it needs, and then step away and see. And there's a give and take to that, but having grace and not making assumptions or judgments is something that I think can be really important. And some relationships, they're going to take a longer time to be where you want it to be,
right?
As opposed to some others. Some others you might click like that, and some others are going to take a year, 2-3 years to really blossom into what it's going to be for a long time. And so I think, at least for me, I have to learn to be more graceful and give more, really foster it and take each relationship on its own, and not be judgmental on it, but give it room to grow, and just see where it can be patient with it.
Yeah, it's just, it's one of those things that I think it's continually a skill that we have to continue to hone, and a character trait that we have to continue to build in and of itself. And I think about, there's many times in my life that I've prayed for patience, and then, God has given me a lot of opportunities to be patient. And then we're like, why are you doing this? And it's like, well, you asked for patience. So be careful what you ask for, I guess, what you pray for in that scenario. But I think the more patience that we can have in our lives and with each other, the better. It's only going to enrich our lives all the more, for sure. So I guess that's all.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Sorry for going a little bit longer than usual, but we hope that it's been beneficial, and we'll be back next Sunday with another episode. Feel free to subscribe on YouTube. You can also follow us on Instagram at No More Some Days with a Z. And if there's any topics you'd like us to tackle or discuss at one of our upcoming shows, feel free to let us know, because we want to bring as much value to you as we can.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.